Hello everyone, my name is Ian Fanning. I'm Algonquin, and I have many years of experience in employment counseling and job search strategy coaching, and I'm here to offer some job search strategy workshops. Hello everyone, today in this brief workshop we'll be reviewing job interview skills. We'll look at some of the basics of interviewing, we'll move on to some specific types of interviews that you may encounter, and then we'll look at we'll move to a practical approach and look at some interviews themselves. So let's start with some basics. Interviews are often stressful for the job seeker, which is completely understandable. Many candidates worry how to act, what to say. A lot of Indigenous students tell me that they feel discriminated against and struggle with that. So let's look at some tips to begin, and we'll try and alleviate some of your fears as we move forward. First and foremost, be open and honest about your Indigenous identity. That's something to be celebrated. It is who you are. As Indigenous knowledge is expanded through different areas of the economy, companies realize that Indigenous identity is something to be valued. Also, a word about dress. Make sure you dress professionally for your interview. You want to balance professional dress with something that's very comfortable so you can relax during your interview. And also, make sure you practice your interview. Get your family and friends to go over your interview questions with you, and just practice so that you're not put on the spot during your interview itself. A few more tips. Research the company and have something to say. At some point, you're going to have to demonstrate that you know something about the company and that you're invested and interested in this job. So be prepared to say something positive about the company and show them that you've researched. Make sure that you show up to your interview on time, preferably about 10 to 15 minutes ahead of time. And speak with confidence and make sure that you show great respect to your interviewer. Try your best not to fidget or play with your hair or show other signs of nervousness. A lot of job interviews really are about your body language, and so try and make eye contact almost continuously with your interviewer. Don't be too critical of past employers. Your interviewer may contact your past employer, so when you're asked for examples in your interview, use positive examples from other employers. Try not to appear desperate for the job and don't beg to be hired. This is not a good way to convince the employer that you're the best person for the job. You need to convince the employer through your interview answers that you're the best candidate. So now we'll look at a couple of different types of interviews that you may face, and we'll focus on the four that are most common. The first is a phone interview. The second is the traditional job interview. The third is a group or panel interview, and the fourth is an informational interview. So we'll review each of those in turn. So we'll address the phone interview first, and some comments generally about phone interviews are don't get too excited when you get a phone interview. Normally a phone interview is basically a screening tool to see if you fit with the company and their philosophy and their values. If you are successful in the phone interview, a face-to-face interview will be scheduled afterward. During a phone interview, you don't have to worry too much about your body language, but you do need to have a respectful tone on the phone, and you do also need to be ready to show the company and the employer that you're interested, and you should proceed to the next stage of interviewing. If you're given some notice about your phone interview, take some time to prepare as you would for your face-to-face interview. Try and anticipate some of the questions that will be asked over the phone, such as, are you available? What are your credentials? Those sorts of things. So now we'll take a look at the traditional job interview, which is basically a face-to-face meeting between you and the employer. Plan on about 35 to 45 minutes, maybe longer or shorter depending on the position. So probably you're going to be interviewed by a member of the Human Resources Department if the company has one. Possibly other recruiters and members of the company will be there as well. So there are some common questions that you will be asked in the typical interview. We'll look at a few of those later, but in traditional interviews, you can count on being asked about your strengths and weaknesses, so be ready and able to talk about those. So now we'll discuss a group or panel interview. In this type of interview, you have several people interviewing you. It may be just 2, or it may be up to 10 or 15. There will be several different people on the panel, likely one from Human Resources, perhaps one from management, or maybe even the president of the company. Possibly one of the members of the board. So maybe research those folks and have something to say. Companies use this type of interview so that not just one person is making the decision to hire, but rather there's a consensus between all the members to hire. Many panel interviews are scored by every member, and then those scores are compared. So try and do your best. You won't convince every member of the panel that you're the best candidate, but if you do your best overall, the consensus may be to hire you. Panel interviews can be even more stressful than the traditional interview. Many people report being intimidated or overwhelmed by the panel interview experience. So just do your best, try and stay confident, speak to the person that's asking you the question, and move from person to person with confidence. So next we'll look at the informational interview. This type of interview is not used by many job seekers, unfortunately, yet it is one of the most proactive job search strategies. In an informational interview, the job seeker basically goes to the company and asks for an interview to discuss the company and learn about the possible positions within the company. So the job seeker has to be proactive and go out seeking companies that they want to work for. The idea of an informational interview is to basically convince the company that you want to work for them. Some of the best jobs I've been offered in the past have been from informational interviews that I've set up with the employer. The informational interview is an excellent way to network and to show the employer that you're interested in finding work. It also shows excellent initiative and positive character. So let's move on now to some common interview questions that you may face in your interview. Knowing these may help you prepare. Here are about 10 of the most common interview questions you'll face. First, why do you want this job? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Give an example of a time where you worked well as a member of a team. What are your greatest achievements? Tell me why you are the best candidate for this job. How do you handle stress at work? Give an example of a time when you served an angry or upset customer and what was the outcome. Tell me about your time management and organizational skills. Provide examples. What questions do you have for me? And here you could ask about hours of work, the benefit plan, or more information about the company. So now we'll look at a traditional job interview. So with the material we've covered so far in mind, let's observe. Try and watch the interview carefully so you can consider some brief questions following the interview.
Thanks coming in, Nicole, on such short notice. I really appreciate your interest in this job. Your resume looks great, so if you don't mind, I'll jump right into the questions, okay? Could you tell me why you want this job?
Because I feel that I know what I'm doing.
You know what you're doing, in what way?
I know the basics, and that's all they need from me.
Okay. Can you tell me what your strengths and weaknesses would be?
My strengths are being trustworthy and reliable. My weaknesses are being on time and not knowing what to do.
Do you ever seek out finding things to do or finding somebody to help you?
I try sometimes.
Okay. Very good. Can you give me a time, an example of a time when you served an upset or angry customer, and what was the outcome?
Somebody called saying that we were trying to bring in all the swans so we can euthanize them, and he said that he was going to shoot him, so I just said I was going to shoot him.
So the outcome of that was he left, or?
He just hung up.
Oh, he hung up. Okay. Alrighty. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
No? None?
No.
Okay. Well, we're going to be interviewing the rest of the day, and I won't have any answer for you until probably towards the end of the week. So I can call you at the numbers that I have on your resume and cover letter. And I thank you for your time.
Now we'll analyze the interview that we just observed. Was the job seeker dressed appropriately for this interview? Did the job seeker seem prepared for the interview? Did the job seeker seem nervous? And did they make appropriate eye contact with the interviewer? Did they show appropriate respect to the interviewer? Did the job seeker do a good job of persuading the interviewer to hire them? And would you hire this candidate? You identified some significant problems with the previous interview. The candidate was not well prepared and did not conduct herself well. Let's observe again as the job seeker is much more successful.
Thank you, Nicole, for coming in such short notice. We are trying to get this job filled as soon as possible. So I really appreciate you just dropping everything and coming. Just have some quick questions for you. Why do you want this job?
I want this job because I hope to be a vet technician one day.
Okay. And this is your stepping stone.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you give me an idea of what your strengths and weaknesses might be?
My strengths are reliable, being trustworthy, and being able to manage my time well. And my weaknesses are sometimes organizing and figuring out what is wrong.
In what way?
In anything.
Okay. So just kind of figuring out.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Can you please tell me how you handle stress on the job?
I handle stress well. I go and ask somebody to come help me if I can't figure out what is going on and I start to get stressed out. I come and ask people for
Oh,
help.
that's good. So you know that you can seek out other people.
Yeah.
Great. Can you give me an example of a time that you had to deal with an angry or upset customer and what the outcome was?
The customer got mad because we were supposed to save this bird and we could not, and we had to tell him why, and he understood and took it good.
That's good, yes. Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
What are the hours?
The hours are 8:30 to 4:30 daily. We do have a staff on the weekend come in, and that will be a rotational staff. So.
Is your company growing at all? Like, is there internships?
Yeah, we're starting to really pick up and branch out, and yeah, we are. Where did you get that idea from?
Your website.
Ah, so you've been checking on us, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you, Nicole. It'll be probably Friday before I can get back to you with the results of your interview today.
Okay.
If I haven't called you by noon, please do call me,
Okay.
okay? And then we can talk from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we see here that the job seeker was much more prepared, body language was much better, dress was much more appropriate. They were respectful of the interviewer and asked some questions to indicate interest near the end. Each interview is a learning opportunity. If you don't do well in an interview, move on and learn. Almost every job seeker has performed poorly in an interview at some point. It's a learning experience, and with practice and patience, you will perfect the job interview that leads to your job offer. There are a few questions at the end of this workshop I hope you will try and answer. These questions highlight some of the most important points in the workshop. So please give them a go and good luck in your interview.